go through our agenda for the new Revolutionaries discussion, and then we'll have a little discussion after that.
Great. Thanks, Nolan. So I just wanted to make sure that the sign-in sheet was still going around, so please keep that flowing, and make sure it gets back up to us here at the end or on the table back there. Hopefully the Senator got you excited and really helped frame, I think, how important these issues are, and that local strategies, local conversations are really the way that this can move forward. So we want to build on that energy and those ideas to really focus in on opportunities that we see here as part of our movement. So I did want to just make sure we kind of continue this dialogue and exchange and make sure we have a sense of who all is in the room here. So let's start out maybe with who's from the DC area, who are locals here. Okay, quite a number of folks in attendance. That's great. How about other folks in sort of the Mid-Atlantic, up the eastern seaboard? So some other folks there too. How about down in the southeast? Okay, great. Midwest? Okay. Mountain West? Great. And West Coast? Big group West Coast too. Great, but clearly a conversation that's going on across the country, which is great. Now, how many folks, this is their first time at Rail Volution? Great, quite a number of new folks. And how many folks have been here more than 5 times? You're still welcome. You're still welcome. That's good. That's good. It always feels new, right? So great. And then in terms of sort of the various sectors and roles that we're all playing, how many folks say work for a government agency? Quite a number of folks. How many folks are in the private sector? Great. Community advocates? Well, and we may all be that too, but perhaps not in those other categories. Let's see, who am I missing there? What other identities do folks? Students, that's a big important one. Great. And elected officials, yay. Mayor Percy, thank you. So great, clearly a diverse group of folks here, and that's really what we reflect our communities and this movement, I think. So thank you for that. So we did, as you can see here on the session agenda, have a bit of a way we wanted to move through this. So I guess one other question, I know there are a number of new folks here, but how many people were in Portland last year where we had sort of our inaugural session of this group? So, okay, a good number of folks, so you can keep us accountable to make sure we represent what actually happened. But we did want to review progress that we've been making on the priorities that we really identified out of that meeting, and then the follow-on to it. So those that are there will recall that we had, I think, a very good discussion and really focused in on various things that were important to new and emerging professionals for the Rail Volution, both focused on how to make the conference more accessible and engaging for folks, but also how to participate in the movement of Rail Volution throughout the year, not just at the conference time. And so the sub-bullets you see there, starting with the local chapters concept that we want to focus in on a lot today, but also moving through a few of these others, were really what came out. So we want to move through those, report a bit of progress and activity that's on there, and after we kind of update everyone, then we want to have some discussion to make sure that people are aware of that, people are aware of the opportunities to sort of validate that these are still really the priorities that make a lot of sense, and see if there are other ideas that folks have that we can be working on both at a national level together as a movement and also in our own communities as we move forward. So that's, and then we'll wrap up with a little focus on, for those of you that really want to take this home and get the chapter started, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the resources we've developed to support you there. So on the local chapters, yes, please.
Who are you?
Oh, it's true, we never did introduce ourselves. The senator came right in as we were getting started. Thank you. So my name's Eric Hesse, and I happy to be involved with both the national and the local Portland effort on new Rail Volutionaries. And my day job is as coordinator of strategic planning at TriMet, the transit authority in Portland region. And Nolan is my co-moderator, and he's an urban designer with ZGF, Zimmer Gonzalo Frasca, who's been a great partner in a number of our projects, including the Transit Mall and others, and also very active in our chapter as well as a number of other local community building efforts in our region. Thank you. So So on the local chapters, we in Portland have been quite active, and I'm going to ask Art Pierce, who's been chairing that effort, to make a few remarks on that as Art's coming up. I'll just note that we have been hearing from a number of you about interest there, and so we're really excited, and we also want to hear a little bit from DC and acknowledge the work they've been doing, but also folks in LA are getting organized and excited about next year, folks in Charlotte and Atlanta, Vancouver, Hartford, Boston, Denver, really all over the country are expressing interest, and so we're hoping that that more and more of those communities step up, and that we can work on this together. So Art, please just a few remarks about what we've been doing in Portland to give folks some ideas and get the creative spirit going here.
Is everyone able to hear me if I just talk like this? Does that work, or should I use the mic?
Use the mic.
Oh. All right. So my name's Art Pierce. I work with the City of Portland, and was one of a whole group of folks last year that started revving up a lot of activity around the Rail Volution conference when it was coming to Portland. And really realizing that we wanted to see more programming happen. So as you probably noticed, I was one of the few people who raised their hands who's attended this conference a number of times. The first time I came to the conference was in '98. And I think something that I've found as a sort of emerging professional each time I've come is that you do start to get more and more comfortable with the conference, but it is a conference that takes a couple rounds to really get into, to get your hands on, to understand how the conference can best serve you, and as well as also that you don't have necessarily all of the right sort of networking opportunities and activities that other folks might have who have been in the industry for a long time. So we worked really hard last year to get some fun activities happening, including the Film Fest last year at the conference. And then after the conference occurred, realized, wait a second, this was good. There was some really good activity here in Portland that we didn't otherwise have occurring, and we wanted to do more of this. And I think that's something that we see as Rail Volution works from city to city, conference to conference, is that there's a lot of activity, and then we want to find a way to keep that activity going and that excitement going. So we decided to form, and one of the comments that we heard at the lunchtime opportunity last year was this notion of chapters. So we decided that was a good idea to start running with, and so we formed a chapter. And really, it doesn't take much. I mean, this is it's a small piece. So we essentially, as a small group of us, started activity up, started doing monthly happy hours. Essentially, established me as the local chair, and I guess de facto national chair as a result, because we started out as one. And then trying to figure out what are the type of activities that we should be working on to respond to the priorities, but really also to start getting a more active dialogue and activity going on in the Portland region. So we worked on really in large part driven by Lauren Joyner, who's right up here in front, and also Todd Borkowitz, working on setting up activities. So we monthly happy hours, tours of local development, bike rides going around the local region, and hosting local speakers. So we had when folks were coming to town, we set up a forum for them to come and talk to folks, and also be sort of shown around the town. And then as sort of we got more and more excited, and also coming to this year's Rail Volution, we wanted to put on a fun activities that could actually be also part of the Film Fest. So we heard the call out from DC that we wanted to submit something. So we last month put on live music on board Portland streetcars. So we had 8 live bands playing on board streetcar for a 3-hour period. Great surprise and fun for the random passerby who happened to hop on the streetcar. And certainly great fun for us, honestly, just as the act of putting it on. I think we all felt revitalized just after having done that activity, even though it was extra work, having to sort of deliver a win like that in such a fun way. So I think that's probably our summary for this year, and we're planning to continue to do these monthly activities and find fun and interesting ways to work together. And then I think we're also interested and committed to helping to further the national priorities, such as one of the big activities was launching the mentoring program, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So,
Thank you, Art.
Yep.
Wanted to ask Jamie Pratt to come up and talk a little bit about the experience of the DC chapter, and wanted to also thank and acknowledge them for a great event last night and on Saturday as well. We'll talk about those some more and get people's takes and other ideas. But please, Jamie, just let us know how it's been and what you all are thinking about doing here post-conference, perhaps.
Thank you very much, Eric. We had such a great kind of macro level discussion earlier. I think my role here is to offer a micro and perhaps personal reflection on what it's meant to be a part of a new Rail Volutionaries effort here in Washington, D.C. As we'll talk about further in this agenda, the 3 things that really did become clear to me about why do we need new Rail Volutionaries as a subgroup of the Rail Volution I think the three key points are providing leadership opportunities for young professionals and giving us an opportunity to take charge, to organize, to be out front, to have public speaking opportunities so that as we gain professional experience, we also have leadership experience and we can become even more effective in the jobs that we do. Also connecting young leaders with mentors, which I think is really rewarding as a two-way street. It's rewarding for the mentee and the mentor when that right partnership is made. And so I think we can do more on that front here in Washington, but I'm excited about that being a key priority for the new Rail Revolutionaries. And probably most impactful in terms of my experience this past year has been this sense of empowerment for the young professionals. And I kind of am waxing poetic, but I was thinking about, you know, if Richard Florida kind of took the idea of what it meant to be a creative and expanded that to an entire creative class, then I think part of what Rail Volution is about and part of what being a new Rail Volutionary is about is taking the idea of what it means to be a transit planner or a transit enthusiast and expanding that out to this idea of creating a connected class. And that includes people who are technical planners, that includes people who are bloggers, that includes people who just ride the metro, anyone who's a transit user, or anyone who's, you know, we saw in last night's film festival, maybe a transit skeptic, and reaching out to the transit skeptics and recognizing that they too can be part of this connected class. As what is particularly fun, I feel like I drew the lucky straw becoming chair of the new Rail Volutionaries in DC because there were no rules. So you can pretty much do whatever you want. And so our take on it this year was to do for the first time a Saturday night event for those who came into town early, and really a mashup of a little sightseeing, a little biking on Capitol Bike Share, a little artistic expression, making our own t-shirts, that kind of thing, and I think people had a really good time with it. And I also just kind of wanted to reflect on you know, where we go from here. In my day job, am head of economic development and urban planning for DC's fastest growing neighborhood, NOMA. So it's kind of a microcosm for, I think, in some ways, the way in which our urban communities might be growing in the future. And some of the trends that I'm seeing is pretty much downsizing on both the office and the residential side, right? So, you know, in where we used to be at about 250 square feet for employee, we might be closer to 200 square feet. What does that mean for transit? Well, it means that employers are interested in their employees being able to be productive in multiple places. They don't necessarily have to come to the office. So they're more interested in mobility than marble. We're definitely seeing that in NOMA, and they'd rather have that cost savings and that mobile productivity. And that's really translating into the types of leases they sign. On the residential side, people are willing to take much smaller unit sizes and are therefore demanding more amenities, not from within the building envelope, but from without the public realm, and wanting to connect with each other in park-like spaces, but also really enthusiastic about using streets as parks, using streetcars as music festivals. People love that element of surprise and exclusivity. They really find that engaging. And of course we see the same trend in retail with the food truck phenomenon and really blurring the line of what it means to have retail or active space. And to me that all relates back to the way we use the public realm and the way we connect to each other through transit. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks for those thoughtful remarks, Jamie. So moving quickly through here, because we do want to have the discussion. On the mentoring front, hopefully some of you have been experiencing that. We want to hear from you in a little bit, but we have over 80 folks, mentor-mentee pairs established here, and I want to thank Julie Gustafson in the front who really helped to organize and pull that together, so thank you, Julie. So quick hands, how many folks have been participating in mentor? So great, a number of folks. So we look forward to having a discussion with you about how that's working and other opportunities to continue to improve that. On the speaking opportunities front, I know that's been a big area to have folks have that opportunity to present their work and get out there. We were very pleased to see that over a quarter of the folks speaking at this year's conference actually have been in the industry less than 10 years, and a number of them less than 5 years. And so I think we're really seeing more of that. And so kudos to the steering committee and those that are selecting from a growing pot of applications. It was great that people were encouraged to submit more applications. And I think, as you heard, this was by far a record number of proposals to speak. And so it's on both sides that we need to keep doing that. But I think seeing real progress there. Additionally, on the networking opportunities, you heard some discussion on that, and so hopefully folks did get to go to the Film Fest last night and also on Saturday. Just curious, so how many folks were at the Film Fest last night and the happy hour afterward? Great, a good number. And on Saturday, were folks able to participate in that as well? Maybe some folks were just getting in or a little wiped out, but I want to talk more about that and have other ideas for future events. So I think we really, thanks to the DC chapter, seeing a lot of that happening this year. And then on the fellowships, I know over 30 scholarships were given to a number of students and community advocates in the area. This is one where sponsors and things like that are really important, including your own employers, and having the conversation about the fact that this is happening and there's really support from the conference to have this participation and real opportunities, and that they have a role in stepping up, I think, to support their emerging professionals and being able to participate as well. But that's, I think, an area for ongoing discussion, and look forward to people's thoughts and ideas on that. So that's kind of the update. I think a number of things have been happening, but we really want to dig in now and kind of hear from you all and see what your experiences have been with that. So I don't know if Nolan, if you wanted to start with a few questions. I guess we wanted to make sure that, does this still seem like the right set of activities? It's a number of pieces, and see if there are some other ideas out there as well.
So this is a pretty informal discussion, and we just wanted to open it up and see if there are things that people wanted to highlight as being particularly successful that you participated in, either in the past year or this weekend or this week, and or things that you think we could add to this list of priorities that would sort of enrich the vision of New Rail Volutionaries and what it could be. Jenna.
Jenna Nichols with URS Corporation. I had an idea to perhaps there's a scholarship opportunities, and I had applied. I didn't get one, but I did know several people that did get them, and I was really happy with who was selected. That being said, I was still planning on coming, and I think that there should be maybe an online forum for us to say, hey, I'm going to Washington, D.C. Anybody need a roommate? Maybe like a link if we have a website for New Revolutionaries. So, I mean, social networking is so big. Actually, the way I found where I was going to stay before I found out that my company was going to support me on this, I just threw up on Facebook like, hey, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. Is there anybody who has a place for me to stay? And I immediately got a response. So if we had the same sort of thing, but within our New Revolutionaries or Revolution community, then people could be, walking together back to wherever they're staying and meet people that way, connect. So that was one idea. Another idea is that for CNU, Congress for New Urbanism, they do volunteer opportunities. So they do scholarships, and then they also do volunteer opportunities. And I don't know how it's, how the volunteer opportunities work at at Revolution, and if people they already have a surplus of this, but I was thinking that could be a good way to offer a discounted registration, because I know that even if you can find a cheap flight or a way to get there and a cheap place to stay, and even if you can swing all that, the cost of the conference is still really expensive. So for those people who, it's a very competitive process to get a scholarship, so if you're not somebody who gets a scholarship, it should still be an opportunity for you to come here. So perhaps tapping into, maybe some of the mobile tours, mobile workshops, the registration desk, helping out with setting up for the presentations, and I don't know, there's got to be ways to get people involved in a volunteer way to reduce the cost. Also, the mentorship program, perhaps providing suggestions to the mentors on what they could be doing with their mentees, suggestions to the mentees on what they could be asking their mentors, and how they can continue the conversation beyond this particular event, because I think it could be a really valuable resource, especially for young professionals, to connect with people and have that network connection for the rest of their career. And I was paired up with somebody on the West Coast and I'm from the East Coast, and I thought that was really great because, you know, sort of running in different circles and having access to different professionals. And I think that's sort of along the lines of breaking down the silos, so commend you on that pairing. And maybe reaching out to the businesses, the corporations, the municipalities, whoever is sending you know, representatives from their companies or various organizations, and really having maybe like a fact sheet or a connection, a conversation with them as to why they should be sending some of these young professionals, because I can say that on my my form that I submit for approval for them to pay for this, but if they're going to pay attention to me, you know, they would really be paying attention to maybe some of the higher ups in Rail Volution who would be like, just a quick phone call, hey, you know, you should really send some of your younger professionals. This is a great opportunity for your company and for your professionals that are working for your company, even if you're not interested in making, you know, a better employee. If that's not one of your goals, you should be interested in at least getting your company's name out there and having, you know, them network and connect with people. And so maybe a committee that contacts these big corporations that are so willing to sponsor the conference in a monetary way, but they should also be providing that support, because it's really the time to met a young lady last night at the film fest after the reception afterwards, and she said she couldn't come to the conference because she couldn't get the hours off. She didn't have vacation time to use, and I know I faced that last year too. And so, you know, those are real obstacles that even if you do offer a scholarship, are they going to be supported by their company for the time off or the compensated time? So I thought that would be a good.
Yeah, it's a good observation that there's a lot of different tiers of, you know, sort of
support.
Barriers to entry, and it seems like we always see the most young people from the city where it's being held, because, you know, they're not paying for travel, they're not paying for hotel, but even, you know, the time off.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to make one other point. We passed some sign-up sheets around at the beginning. They have a column for willing to participate in a chapter, willing to take leadership in a chapter. If we can make sure that those are continuing to circulate. I know some people have come in since we started. Other hands. How about way in the back? And
I just want to say a quick thing. So the first thing you said, that'd be really easy to set up just a Google group or something. And I know that in Portland, I know you know this too, we've made really good use of quick listservs to get information out among transportation advocates, both sort of in the bike advocacy community and also in a more multimodal advocacy community. So maybe Lauren or Nolan or something could just set up a Google group, and now that we have everybody's email addresses, we can just start that conversation continuing on.
quick show of hands, because, you know, there's Google groups, there's LinkedIn groups, there's Facebook groups. How many people use Google groups on a regular basis? Okay, how many people use LinkedIn groups? Yeah, sort of. Facebook groups for communication? Okay, so pseudo equal all the way across the three.
We do have a Facebook page. I invite you to like us, and then once you do, I'll be able to email you.
So we do have a Facebook site, so look for it, like it, and maybe that'll be the first kickoff step. In the suit, tie. Oh, sorry. We'll move towards this.
Okay. Josh Collins, Twin Cities, former rabble-rouser in Portland. Some of us are aware of the Ignite phenomenon that has been very popular in cities. It allows creatives to basically say you get 12 slides in 5 minutes to present whatever you want. If you don't have the resources to create a street film, something, you might have the resource to put together some kind of presentation. I think that being the mobile nature of Rail Volution, we could have an Ignite Rail Volution, where maybe one evening people are allowed to submit an idea, and everyone goes up and you have 25 people do 5-minute presentations on something just totally interesting about what they're doing in their property.
So another example of that is Pecha Kucha. Have people participated in that? I know there's a group in Portland that does Pecha Kucha, and I think maybe there's an Ignite group as well. So, yeah, that's a great thought. Jacket.
Mark Vanderschaff, also Twin Cities, not a rabble-rouser though, I'm a bureaucrat. But I wanted to say I was at the film festival last night, and the film I thought was most interesting was one you mentioned, and now I see the new Rail Volutionaries are responsible. The concerts on the streetcars. And I guess what I'd like to suggest, and it's really kind of along the lines of my fellow Twin Cityans, I think the more that can be done to kind of look at transit and transit station areas as a medium for interesting and creative artistic expression, I think that could really contribute to making these magnets for where people want to be and live and businesses and everything. We actually try to do, or thinking about doing some of that through regular bureaucratic channels, but grant writing and getting permission and so on and so forth, that can take a really long time. So the more that can be done sort of on the fly, but without making people angry and counterproductive, I think that would be a great emphasis of this movement.
Yeah. And I'll say that was driven by a lot of volunteer effort, but we also had great participation from Portland Streetcar, so thank you, Julie, and others who stepped up to kind of cut what could have been a lot of red tape.
You do need the bureaucracy.
Or did you have something?
I can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't help but echo it. I think one of the things that so a group of us were the ones who put on the streetcar event. Couldn't help. I mean, it was work for sure, but it didn't take a lot of money. It didn't take a lot of work, and it didn't take a lot of permission, because essentially we just had to get concurrence that it was okay to put these bands on board the streetcar. So I think the sort of and essentially all of us as volunteers were excited to do it, and in fact the bands were surprised that they were being let to do this. So it's really on all sides. Everyone's like, we're allowed to do this? So I think there's a lot of that type of opportunity in your city where you are allowed to do it. You just haven't occurred to you to ask and just to try to make it happen.
And we worked with a couple other organizations, and I think those partnerships were really big because some provided money, some organized the bands. So PDX Pop Now, was that?
So PDX Pop Now is a local music organization that puts on an annual concert in Portland, but that also has lots of connections with promoters, and so helped us with connecting with bands. Though honestly, in the end, most of the bands were acquaintances of many of us, or friends through various folks. And then the other really big influence was WTS, an organized, established network of professionals all throughout the country. Since Women's Transportation Seminar was really effective when we were sort of trying to figure out how we're going to have the momentum and the horsepower to put on an event like this. And they came in with volunteers, with resources, with sort of professional backgrounds that really helped a lot. So that was another big thing, is reaching out to other groups. I don't think that we need to create new silos by creating new Rail Volutionary chapters, that we can essentially all just work together across the various groups.
Chris, and then we'll move towards the back of the room.
So Chris Yate, Portland Metro, deadbeat dad of the new Revolution. But luckily, good foster parents. Gotta hand it to Lauren, Art, Todd, Eric. I mean, just great. I do want to mention one thing that Eric did not highlight. 2 years ago, I was kind of brought up to the National Steering Committee, which I sit on, the fact that this is kind of an older conference, and I try to be gracious. And I was pretty much the only one under 40 in the room at the time. But now we have about, I think, 7. And so I think, to Jenna's question about the scholarships or the volunteering, I think where our pull is slowly but gradually increasing, because there is some attrition going on the National Steering Committee. So I think our agenda, the time is now. Because we didn't make the hard ask on that question. We actually pulled back a bit, because revenue is a big issue with this conference. It's actually, compared to ULI and APA, pretty darn cheap. So there's a certain degree of sensitivity, and we just don't want to overplay our hand. But I think this next year, maybe it's time to ask that question.
Yeah, you don't know until you ask.
Right. Right. We hinted at the question, and we already got pushed back. So, but maybe this year or next year is the time is right.
Blue shirt on the aisle.
Before that last comment, I just want to mention the creation of new groups or silos. And I think because there are many like-minded groups, you reference CNU, WTS, there's then you get down to a local level where we have our own local initiatives. Around here it's Purple Line or Silver Line, and we have our like a bicycle group we're involved with. Any new chapter or existing chapter should probably focus on integrating or partnering with all of the other ones, because that's a lot of happy hours each month, a lot of meetings each month. Whereas sometimes that's not a problem. It becomes a little bit difficult, I think, to juggle schedules, especially when you're going to a lot of advocacy events. A county council meeting, once a week, a planning board hearing once a week. You start to get drowned out. So partnering, maybe have a CNU chapter, a Rail Volutionary chapter, partner up until you get a critical mass and they do separate events. It's something that kind of brings them all together and will get the new chapter some exposure to folks that are more apt, that would be very apt to volunteer time or help organize.
Great.
I can speak to that really fast.
Sure.
We were lucky in Portland, partly because we had so much momentum after the Film Fest. It was fairly easy to transition what we had going with that planning effort into something that continued itself, as far as like just sort of transitioning some of the committees and some of the leadership roles we had before into something new. But a lot of these other groups do have that sort of system already established, so it is kind of easy to piggyback on and kind of take what they have already organized and translate it into something for New Revolutionaries. So the one really big thing that we are really trying to promote with New Revolutionaries is the fact that we can break down silos between all these advocacies and all of these bureaucrats and public and private, and really all work together. So bringing in these other groups, it's a fantastic thing. So far we've worked with ASLA, we've worked with Women in Transit. We're going to be reaching out to the local PSU grad student organizations and their planning departments as well within the near future. And so, I mean, even if it's just for one event or one happy hour a month, and then maybe, in the future we'll work together again, it seems to really work well.
So we had some hands up in the back of the room. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Veronica Davis. I'm here in DC. And I think just in terms of also breaking down silos, I think that adding some diversity. I mean, we heard the speech yesterday about how the U.S. is becoming majority, minority, or whatever, but bringing in, the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, the National Society of Black Engineers, and start bringing kind of a cultural context, particularly since many of us are working in cities and working in minority communities.
Other comments or thoughts? Yeah.
I've been an activist for 35 years, but I'm young thinking, okay? In my job of advocating for sustainable transportation and sustainability, we always have to win on the facts. And that's just the beginning. But if you don't have the facts for economic development, cost effectiveness, reduced greenhouse gases, energy per passenger mile being the maximized least, if you don't have the facts, you aren't going to win at all. In most cases. Seems to me like the national group could put together a kind of a Wikipedia type of thing where we could contribute the research and facts that will help other people grab it right away, like commutesolutions.org, Santa Cruz County. That estimates that it costs $1.40 per mile to drive a car to everybody. That's a good figure to have if you want to advocate getting people out of your car. I can tell the Fort Carson Garrison commander, I'm going to save money for the garrison and for the soldiers with sustainable transportation. But it's got to be credible. I can't just make it up. So a clearinghouse of the best research that help us win might be a national scale type of thing, and I'm willing to help with that if you want to set it up.
I want to drill down on a couple issues that are on the list of priorities that people haven't commented on quite as much, but in terms of mentoring, and we saw hands for who's participating, are there other thoughts of what's been good or people that have had good experiences this weekend? I love the idea of sort of carrying those relationships, on beyond the conference, but other thoughts on mentoring? Chris?
So I met with one of mine yesterday. We talked.
Are you a mentor or a mentee?
I'm a mentor.
Okay.
And I met with her for like 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And I like her so much, I'm going to try to get her a job or an internship.
So that was a planted response. There's another hand back left. down. Okay. Other thoughts on speaking opportunities? Were there a lot? Oh,
sorry, not to counter Chris's positive comment too much, but maybe there's a way to follow up within the mentoring program next year. I signed up and my mentor did not email me back. So
same with me. Now, she did email at one point. She emailed me trying to find you.
Oh.
And so
okay,
I need
so
to put you, I was going to talk to you after this. So she did email me back, and I said, well, I know one of them. I don't know the other one, but I can
so
get
maybe,
at least you with one of them. So
maybe an easier way for
yeah,
that to coordinate.
it's trying to figure out, and sometimes it's that there was a typo when you registered with your email, and so maybe, because I copied and pasted emails. That's how honestly, I spent about 5 hours last week on Monday sending out all of the parent emails, let alone the hours Todd and I had spent doing the matching. And so it's trying to find maybe a committee that can help with that in the future, could do that online instead of one person because it was a lot. Trying to find and trying to do what you said was great, was trying to match you with people out of your region. Because you already talked to the people in your own neighborhood and they already know what's going on with you. And so I was really trying whenever possible to match you to someone in a different area of the country so they could talk to you about what they've done. So please feel free to come up and talk to me about it because this is the first year of this program. This was kind of one of those things we came up with and said, and there seemed to be some support for it last year, so we said, okay, let's try it. So please, suggestions, criticisms, anything, we really do want to hear it because we want to see if this can work.
So the first hand was all the way in the back?
Yeah, to comment on that, I think it would be good if there was a structure around it because I was paired actually with a mentor in my geographic neighborhood, which I actually liked.
Okay.
I liked that I was paired with a mentor in my same geographic area because it helped me, I think it's going to help me network and learn more about what's going on in my region and with my set of interests.
And that may be a question on the...
It could be a question that could
next
be added.
year
Do you
is-
want...
But that said, it seems like she's really busy and we actually haven't met yet, and we don't even have something on the schedule yet to meet. And so if there was a time that we could work with the Rail Volution committee to set aside for like a mixer with mentor and mentee or something like that.
Okay.
And it would also help, I mean, just in general, another networking opportunity for young professionals to meet with people who at least think of themselves.
Sarah?
And I met with my client Todd's mentor yesterday, but I hadn't expected it, but he was a civil engineer and I work in the field of governance, and so it's, completely different sectors, which actually was really interesting because he had a lot of things in the field, the larger field that I don't even think about on a regular basis. So the idea of being paired with someone who's outside your sector could be another question, similar to, do you want to be paired with someone in your region?
One thing I was thinking about for the future is putting it out there that the cutoff would be a couple weeks ahead of the conference, because what happened this last time is we never put a cutoff date on it. And so I wanted 2 or 3 weeks before the conference to send out a questionnaire to everyone saying, A, are you still wanting to participate? Because I spent a lot of time Monday repairing people because people weren't coming to the conference or things like that. But also B, some of those questions, and so maybe it's not on the actual registration form, but it's once you've signed up for it, I can send out, or whoever can send out a questionnaire and saying, hey mentors, give me a couple times that you're free and I'll send it to your mentees, or send out to the mentees, who would you like to be paired with? Are you more interested in learning about something in your own field, your region, or, so maybe we can look at developing something like that. Do you think that would help? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jenna?
Yeah, I was going to say that it'd be good to still have it on the registration. That way you can sort of, just a yes or no, but I was sort of expecting like a follow-up, what's the best way to reach you, cell phone, personal email, because I registered with my work email, but I don't have access to my work email outside of work because I don't have a BlackBerry because I'm not that important yet. And, it's just, so I actually had meeting up problems because I couldn't get into my email to tell them,
That's a good point.
email me here and call me here, and if that information could be provided originally. And then, just like you said, there's plenty of other, like WTS does mentoring programs. So we could probably piggyback some of their processes off of what's already been done instead of recreating the wheel. So we should maybe think of contacting people that do this sort of thing, and I might be able to help put you in touch with somebody because I'm actually on WTS organization at home. So
okay, so great.
Okay, so
You're on the committee, Jenna.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, we got like 3 more minutes and then we're just going to wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I think this is a really good time because we have a new director that's probably very receptive to new ideas and just trying to do new things within Rail Volution. So I think it's great that there's going to be that receptivity to all this. On that, the conference is going to Los Angeles next year, and Los Angeles actually has a really developing chapter, and there's a lot of strong energy. I'm actually really excited that we got this film fest going, and if Los Angeles doesn't make a film fest look good, I don't know. I'm really excited for that next year. And it sounds like they're going to do a big call for submissions, too, and there's a lot of people in Los Angeles that I'm sure will submit incredible videos. On that, Los Angeles had asked me to pass along that they're really excited to actually utilize their universities in exploring student-run charrettes. And I know it's come up before. I think this is I support them that this is actually a really good idea and a good time to have a serious conversation about having one of these charrettes through, I believe they have 3 or 4 major universities that are really good at doing them. There's a lot of, and I think oftentimes there's a lot of use of innovative technology in grad student-run charrettes that maybe aren't there in some of our charrettes currently. So anyhow, just want to pass that along.
So real quickly, last thoughts, but specifically if folks have thoughts on speaking opportunities, we didn't hear many comments about those. Did we do a show of hands? How many people were speakers this year at Rail Volution in this room? Or moderators? Okay, all right. Good show. If anyone has other thoughts about that, yeah.
One of the thoughts that I had, it seemed like a lot of the formats for the sessions, folks were really trying to make it an informal conversation, because that's more effective for this time, rather than listening to people talk at you for about an hour. So it was a really great approach, and I really like that idea. I think maybe it's just a matter of, it could be just a simple logistic of the room layout, and structuring it that way so that it's people are more comfortable having this conversation. So something that C&U does is they just keep one room that's set up around the table, like just sitting around in a circle, and then they just go through topics. They can set it up for 2 different topics happening at the same time, salon style, and so something along that lines for that. And that would be a great thing to have Rail Volutionaries sponsor or kind of lead, because they kind of have a good pulse on what are the hot topics for people to talk and share ideas of what's working and what's not, as opposed to just hearing a presentation. So I think that would be a really great idea. I can tell that the sessions for this year, people are trying to head in that direction. It's actually really make it more successful that way.
All right, I'm going to hand it back to Eric, and he'll wrap us up.
Well, thank you all for a number of good ideas, and we have a bit of a gap here afterward before the next set of sessions. So those that maybe didn't get to this to let us know, please do come on up and talk. And we're hopeful that you heard some of the really fun and exciting things that have been happening, and can envision the benefits that continue this conversation at home with a range of groups, a range of people can really can provide. So we do have some startup kits for chapters that put together a few resources and ideas, which we have copies of up here if you're interested. It doesn't necessarily mean you've committed to lots of labor the next time, but if you're interested and you want to learn more and think about it, please do come up and make sure you indicate it on our sign-up list to your interest there, so we can follow up, maybe pair you with other folks from your area that have expressed some interest, and you all can kind of see if there's a there and who wants to take which roles perhaps. So please do come on up and get those, and you can talk with Todd. I want to acknowledge Todd's efforts to date, really, as the chapter coordinating chair, and I know he's been having conversations with a number of you, so Todd would love to talk further with you, meet some of you in person perhaps, if you've just been exchanging emails. Yes, Ann. Oh yeah, please, Dan is in the room.
It's just great to be here. I'm just getting my feet wet, so it's been a real helpful opportunity to hear what you guys are talking about and the possibilities for influencing some of the formats and changes or opportunities for relevant conference. conference. So thanks for being here and taking the time. I was really happy to see how many people were involved in actual session presentations. That actually surprised me at how many folks were involved, which is fantastic. So thanks for sharing the information with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for the opportunity. So that's really, I think, what we want to do. Thank you for your input and feedback and your interest and enthusiasm. So please come on up and keep the conversation going. Thank you.